Chapter 6. My hand hung limply on the desk in front of me, holding a pencil that was tapping nervously against it. That was even getting on my own nerves. The test that was sure to be handed out in the next few minutes was one that I would forgotten, totally out of my mind. So now I sat here, a sitting duck, waiting for the unprepared for test to spare me and set my grades plummeting. Do you mind? I am trying not to freak out from this test. Rachel, the girl in the seat in front of me, said in a friendly way. Before going up to the teacher to ask to go to bathroom, I gave her a smile that she returned as she walked out of the door. Today's test, the teacher started standing up, and immediately I turned out of a conversation that had been happening a lot lately, my mind never staying in the same place for too long. What class was I even in? I scrambled for an answer at the momentary mind blank before glancing at the board. The board mostly consisted of numbers and equations, and I quickly deduced I was in calculus. Great, I will hand the test out after I take roll. Mrs. Reed sat sitting back down in the front of her laptop once more. The past 3 weeks of school had both crept and rushed towards now. My nervousness over nothing in particular was driving me crazy. I was always on edge and was always looking for the same pair of eyes that was the source every class time. But he hadn't walked into calculus late like he usually did. Minutes ticked by and his tall frame didn't walk through the doorway. He wasn't here. Neither had he been here the past 2 hours. Not in wood shop, not in college writing. He was absent. For some reason that even set me more on edge because he hadn't missed a day in the past month of school, always having to hover around me to make sure I wasn't going to spill their beans. Why was the absence of his annoying presence so terrible? Rachel isn't here, the teacher commented, and I looked back up towards her. Her glasses were pushed slightly down the bridge of her nose, so she could just see over the frame. Her gaze was landing on Rachel's temporarily empty desk. She's here. She just went to the bathroom, I commented, starting to tap lightly with my pencil again. I don't see her, the teacher defended. I just told you. You even let her go to the bathroom. I started, my eyebrows knitting in confusion. I felt a light tap on my shoulder. She's just making a joke, Quinn whispered in my ear. I just noticed the slight smirk on Mrs. Reed's lips. My cheeks tinted rough slightly as I noticed my mistakes. I knew that, I said with a forced chuckle. Queen just rolled her eyes and leaned back in her seat. Sure you did, I sighed as the desk landed in front of me, a white death letter that just needed my name on it. Hey Sam, wait up. Someone called from behind me and I whirled around to see Queen meowing through the halls in an attempt to get at me. It was the end of school and I was actually getting out the same time as them. Having made a deal with Mrs. Reed to take the test sixth hour, I stood idle by the doorway waiting calmly, my mind pausing to wonder why she was so hysterical about making me wait. She caught up to me with a smile. Did you forget already? My eyebrows scrunched together in confusion, trying to scrunch up some reasonable reason for forgetting whatever she was talking about. Maybe, I said slowly and got me a well deserved eye roll. You, she said, grabbing my hand. Firstly, are coming with me to help set up for the fall party tomorrow. She enunciated. It dawned on me that that's all she had been chattering non-stop about at lunch. Could it really already be tomorrow? I started as she pulled me out the doors into the reasonably warm sunlight. My eyes landed on my car in the distance. Seeing me being pulled towards her red convertible. No, but you have promised to help, and you are, it's not like you have anything better to do, she pointed out, and even though I was a little peeved at the statement, it was all too true. It's not that I will be there, just have to drop off my stuff at my house before I can come over. I know you well enough that you will be wanting me to spend the night. Her head hopped in agreement, and I grinned genuinely. Fine, but hurry. We have a ton of baking to do and so little time to do it. She gripped my wrist, being released from her death grip. Deal, I said, hurriedly walking away towards my car, in an attempt that she wouldn't change her mind and just drag me back to her house. Surprised, the grin still hadn't fallen from my face, and I found myself excited to spend some time with my longtime best friend. It would help me get my mind off him. Reaching the car, I automatically reached for the keys in my pocket and found them empty. Panic flared through me as I dropped my backpack to the asphalt and frantically searched every space I could think possible. Queen, I almost yelled out, but her car was already out of the parking lot. His red surface not visible anymore, but my eyes caught on something shiny and I looked over at the door. The keys were hanging in the lock, the little keychain swing as the wind blew lightly. Straightening up slowly, I grabbed the keys, smoothly pulling them out of the door. They were indeed my set of keys, but how did they get here? I know that I hadn't started to unlock the car door, and they forgot in the momentary brain lapse. Maybe I lost them earlier in the day and someone tried to break into my car. But how could have they picked my car out of hundreds sitting in the parking lot? Nothing really distinguished the set as belonging to this model of car. A shiver traveled down my spine as I unlocked the door and slid into the driver's seat. People were shuffling slowly out of the building just as I pulled out of the school parking lot, tuning the engine as I floored down the road. The sun beat through the windshield and the air was unseasonably warm. Queen always seemed to peak the perfect weekend for her fall party, and this year would be no different. But I couldn't stop the unsettling feeling of the hanging key out of my mind as I stuck my hand out of the open window, resetting it slightly on the roof as I drove one handed. The breeze buffeted the noise inside the car, but I didn't mind as it blew my hair back. Pulling into the driveway, I blinked as a different car stood in the driveway. Its silver paint job was bright and shiny, the model looking on the newer range of things. Hesitantly, I stepped out of the car, making sure the keys were firmly placed in my pocket. It was quite around my house like normal, but there seemed something off. I walked up towards the vehicle, staring in a darkly tinted windows, seeing the shiny leather interior, but a certain familiar briefcase caught my attention. With a grin, I rushed to the door and flung it open, the sweet smell of dinner already being made diffusing towards me. Dad, I called out, and I saw his head pop out from around the corner from the kitchen. His bronze yet graying hair was white blowing as if he had stuck his head out of the window. His bright amber eyes, so similar to mine, were defined by laugh lines from many years of smiling, which is what he was doing now. Sam, I was expecting you sooner. I thought you got out of school at 3. He chirped. A warm, familiar voice had me running into his arm. Instantly, his strong arms wrapped around me, holding me close. He was a lawyer of some sort, really home, but I cherished the times when everything would fall back into places as if nothing had separated us. Sorry, I had to stay for 6 hours because of a test I missed in calculus. I murmured into his sweater. It was his favorite. I had gotten it from him for Father's Day a couple years back. He pulled back to look at me skeptically. You have been missing school, he questioned, and eyebrow raised up peculiarly high. No, sir, just forget to study. Luckily, our teacher is nice enough to allow me some time to do so. I grinned sheepishly. He chuckled as he broke apart from me, indicating for me to take a seat at the kitchen table. Sliding into the seat with an easy smile, I tried peering over his shoulder to see what he could possibly be connected for dinner tonight. But he must have purposely put himself between me and the food. He was always for surprises. It's not like you to not study, Sammy, he said, nonchalantly adding in his nickname for me. Is everything alright? I know I haven't been around much for the past couple weeks. My heart thudded in my chest as I realized that I couldn't tell him what was really going on in my life, like I would always had. This time, it wasn't my secret to speak, and I wasn't about to expose my father to any of this mess, even if I could. Taking a long drink of the iced tea that he sat in front of me, trying to swallow away the words that I wanted to say. Yeah, I'm fine. It's just being lonely around here, I said, not totally lying. It had gotten lonely without his cheerful presence. He gave me a sympathetic look as he sat down, setting two plates of lasagna in front of us. I grinned devishly at my favorite dish, five cheese, I asked, ticking in, and he finally grinned back, nothing else. I remembering asking so many times when I was young if the people really were innocent, and he would always shrug. Everyone believes that they didn't do anything wrong. It's not my job to think one way or the other. It's just my job to try my best to keep them off a jail, no matter what I think or not. Personally, I didn't think it was fair that he was practically made to lie on tail to keep people who were criminal deep down. But it was the job he loved doing, and it's what kept me in this house and the possibility of college in my future. My plate was licked clean, the remnants of red sauce gone as I scraped my fork against the plate, enough to pick up microscopic cheese particles that tasted so good. He chuckled. There's more in the fridge for you later. I started to say thank you, but caught on the word in the sentence. Me? Aren't you staying for the night? He usually came home and stayed the week before heading back up to the city a couple hours away from here. He shook his head sadly as he dumped our plates in the dishwasher. So I have another case in the morning. I was just free today and thought it would be nice to see my baby girl. I couldn't stop my shoulders from slumping. When's the next time you will be home? I asked. He seemed to consider it as he shuffled some of the paperwork that he probably had been working on while I was at school. Probably not for another 2 weeks. I said goodbye and he drove me off, silver car fading as it went down the winding street. With a sigh, I glanced at the clock, realizing it had been 3 hours since I had gotten home. Queen would start to get concerned, either that or think I flagged out on her. Quickly, I moved through the house, leaving a tornado of tidiness in my wake, collecting some things that I needed to take over to her house, like the dress I planned on wearing tomorrow for the party. I almost grimaced all over again at the ridiculous price tag, but quietly tucked it away before I would be tempted to take it back, snatching up the envelope of money my dad would leave on the counter. I placed it in the jar that I used for grocery money and money to pay the bills. I slipped on my coat and walked out the door, my bag with my dress and shoes in it slung over my shoulder, and locked the door behind me. The moment I started the car, my phone started blaring with my annoying ringtone growing at the number. I debated whether to answer or not, in fear of being showed out. Hello, Queen, I asked blindly, backing up out of the driveway. Where are you? She screamed in my ear, causing me to pull the cell phone away from me. Sorry, my dad surprised me by stopping by and we at dinner. I almost forgot about tonight. I'm on my way right now, I explained. Oh, she said softly. You didn't have to come over if your dad home, she said, sounding slightly disappointed. No, he left, not coming back for another 2 weeks. She didn't answer at first, knowing me well enough to know that it hurt every time I had to watch him leave me behind. Well, hurry, I guess we have to start with those cookies. I rolled my eyes. Persistence, yeah, I will be there soon enough. Pulling into Cohen's parents' driveway was like pulling into my own. It was my second home, if not my first. I even had my own room at their house. The lights were on the doorway, and I could see Cohen's peering reflection in the window. I could picture her face pressed up against the glass like the first time I would ever come to sleep over. Laughing, I parked my car and skipped up the sidewalk, mostly for her enjoyment. I could hear her laugh through the wall as I opened the door. What are you, in the visit of Ozzy? She laughed. Because, I sang, throwing my hands up in the air. Because of the wonderful things he does. We cursed together before wrapping each other in an intense bear hug. I was swept into the kitchen where everything was laid out of cookies and other types of sweets in the works. A kitchen apron was already laid out for me on the counter, and I tied the strings of it behind my back, liking the fact how we both looked like women in the 50s cooking in their kitchens. But the kitchen was far from the type you would find in the 50s, very similar to Mrs. Everdene's, expect even in a bigger scale. We have done it before, I said with a shrug. Yeah, but then we had Rebecca and Kyle to help us. She pointed out, shutting the fridge door with her foot. I hopped down, realizing that they weren't here. The two lovebirds were probably out on a date again, and well, then we better get started with them. I grinned, eating a piece of a creamy sugar dough. She swatted my hand away playfully. She swatted my hand away playfully. Yes, we must.